Hello, everybody. Welcome again. We're here with Paul Engel of the ConstitutionStudy.com. Paul, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the mandates that were going around. Some of the local governors and county mayors and local officials were tossing out mandates, and you basically said they're illegal based on what our Constitution tells us.
Correct.
Talk to us a little bit more in depth now about the responsibilities of our local officials. Let's just say our city council, our city mayor, our county mayor, and our county commission. How do they govern as far as the Constitution goes? Does it have the authority, or are there other things? Can they toss mandates out just like the governors have been doing?
So yeah, it's the place to look is Article 6, and we're going to talk about clauses 2 and 3. Clause 2 is called the Supremacy Clause. It reads, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land." So if you notice, there's a hierarchy. Right? The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Federal laws of the United States made pursuant to it, meaning if the law doesn't follow the Constitution, it's not the supreme law of the land. So when Congress passes a law that is not a power delegated to them in the Constitution, like the Department of Education, it's not the supreme law of the land. Right? Same with treaties. Right? The United States can only create a treaty within the power we've delegated to them. Right? It is a supreme law of the land, and in fact, it goes on to say, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So every judge in every state is bound by the U.S. Constitution. So if a state passes a law and it is in violation of the U.S. Constitution, the judge is bound to say, no, I can't, I have to find against that law. In this case, I cannot apply that law because it's in violation of the Constitution. That is not just federal judge, that's state judge, county, every judge in every state is bound to that. And notice it also says not just state law, but state constitution. So for example, the Second Amendment to the United States says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Constitution of Tennessee has the exact same verbiage, except it adds, but the carrying of firearms may be regulated to ensure safety. Wait a second, that's a Constitution that now is infringing on a right protected by the U.S. Constitution. So that brings up an interesting, judges should look at that and say, well, yeah, okay, the state constitution says that they can regulate it, but the U.S. Constitution, which is supreme, says if you're infringing on a right, that's verboten. It shall not happen. So that's understanding the Supremacy Clause. But there's one other piece of this puzzle that becomes very interesting, and that is actually Clause 3. Clause 3 says, "The senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution." So think about it. Every officer, legislative, executive, judicial, at the state and federal level, and by the way, our counties and our towns are subsets of the state. They are required in their oath of office to swear or affirm support. They are bound to that document. It says they are bound by oath. They're going to make a solemn promise that they will abide by. They will support that Constitution. So when a governor or a county mayor or a county board or even a county judge ignores the Constitution or subverts the Constitution, they are not only breaking the law, they are violating their oath.
Right.
Now that's an important point because for two reasons. One is, in many cases, these officers are elected. So what good is it electing an officer who will not abide by a solemn promise they make? If they swore or affirmed to support the Constitution and they don't, to me that's automatic disqualification for office.
Right.
But also on a federal level, the judges of the United States, the federal judges, they serve only during their good behavior. Violating an oath is a violation of good behavior. So by understanding the Constitution, we understand, okay, the U.S. Constitution supersedes state constitutions, state laws, even federal law. And because these officers are bound to support that, then that is the basis for whether it's opposing them during election or challenging them in court or even considering having them removed from office.
Okay. Now let's get a little bit more specific. We've already talked about this once before, but one thing comes to mind with the holidays coming up and the gathering of people. There have already been some states come out with mandates.
Oh yeah,
saying they can't meet indoors in California.
Yep.
Oregon. There's Ohio even came out with a statewide mask mandate extended through the end of the year. There's going to be pressure on our politicians, on our elected officials, even down to the local level, even in this county probably, to throw out a mandate like this. I remember when when COVID started back in March, and in early April here, we had stay-at-home orders are in effect. And how does that fit? I know you told me earlier, and you told us that it's illegal for that to take place, but you just see it continue happening.
So, and it happens because the people don't know any better. So, two places I want to refer. According to Alexander Hamilton, the Federalist 78, any act of a delegated authority contrary to its commission is void. I'm paraphrasing, but you can certainly look that up. That means you have to remember that every elected office, every government office is a delegated authority. We delegated through the Constitution powers to the state of Tennessee. The state of Tennessee delegated some of that power through the U.S. Constitution to the government of the United States. So if they've been delegated an authority and they're acting contrary to the commission for that act is void, empty, of no value, of no use. Now, by the way, it's not just Alexander Hamilton. The infamous case, Supreme Court case, Marbury versus Madison, the Chief Justice Marshall said essentially the same thing. An act of a legislative act contrary to the Constitution is void. That's the same, by the way, for an executive act or a judicial act. It is void. It is empty. It is meaningless. That's why I refer to it as the emperor who has no clothes. These laws they're depending on don't legally exist. So what you have is a situation where, and this is where, to me, it's very important to have at least a passing relationship with your county sheriff. See, the county sheriff is a unique office. They don't work for the state. They don't even work for the county. They are elected law enforcement officers, elected by the people of the county. They work for the people of the county.
Right.
They are the chief law enforcement officer of the county. That means that a county sheriff or their deputy has the authority to arrest a state police officer, a state trooper, even federal law enforcement. To have them understand that their role is not first and foremost to enforce state law or even federal law. Their first role is to protect the rights of the citizens in their county. Now, I've had this discussion with our sheriff, right? And I got, by the way, I got a very good answer, if anyone's curious. But it's the understanding that a law that is contrary to the Constitution is void. That we make sure that our law enforcement, our primary protection, is to the rights of the people, meaning it is the job of the sheriff to protect us from someone trying to enforce an illegal order. But it's also incumbent on we the people to stand with that sheriff, because when they do that, he or she are going to get a boatload of heat. Everybody, from the county mayor to the governor to CNN to the New York Times, are going to pillory these people. We the people need to stand up and say, we don't care, you're doing your job.
Right.
That's what we hired you to protect our rights. You do that job and we will support you.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a spike taking place right now with COVID, according to numbers
Well,
that we see.
Yeah, that's debatable.
Okay. Well, let's just say for discussion's sake,
Okay.
hypothetically, we are in the middle of a spike. The pressure is mounting. So Bedford County commissioners can't gather and come up with a lockdown mandate or a mask mandate or whatever else kind of mandate they can think of, and it'd be legal. They can't do that.
Correct, and I would take it a step farther. I'd say it's incumbent, and I focus on this a lot. It is incumbent of the people of Bedford County to remind their commissioners of this fact.
Right.
To remind them that they swore or affirmed to support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Tennessee. That they have not been delegated a power to lock down, to arrest people. Right? Lockdowns are effectively house arrest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They have not been granted the authority to do that without due process of law. They cannot deprive you of your liberty without due process of law. They cannot deprive you of your property. That includes not only your stuff, but in your case, your business. In many cases, it's a license, whether you have a license to drive, a license to carry a firearm, a license to do business. That's your property. They cannot deprive you of that without due process of law. And by the way, it's a federal offense. It's a federal crime to violate the Constitution under color of law. So what you end up with is we have to remind these commissioners, you work for us. We have put this limitation on you. If you violate that, we will see that you are fired. This idea that the people employ their elected officials. Governments don't rule over us. We employ government to do work for us.
Right.
Right? We need to remember that.
Boy, I tell you, it's forgotten.
Oh, absolutely, it's forgotten. But it's an important point because that's where you get the understanding that I have the right to go in and say, these are the rules. We've set the rules for you. And if you won't follow the rules, if you won't abide by your oath, by your solemn promise, then we will fire you and find somebody else. Because if I can't trust you to abide by your promise, I can't trust you to protect my rights. I can't trust you to make any decision because you've proven to me that you will lie, that you will break your promise for political reasons, not to protect my rights.
Okay, I'm going to make a statement. You tell me if this is correct,
Okay.
and we'll close. There's people on Facebook and social media right now within our county that are screaming for the county commissioners or the county mayor to come out with a mask mandate so that it will shut down the virus. So if the mayor or the county commissioners get together and put a mandate together, they're in violation of they're not upholding the oath that they made to uphold the Constitution.
They are violating their oath of office. They are usurping the powers of the people of the county. They are stealing from the people of the county their liberty. And to the people that are demanding these mask mandates, they are trying to steal the liberty of their neighbors.
Okay.
They are assuming the authority to tell other people how to live.
Okay. So basic answer, the question is they are violating their oath.
Yes.
They're violating the law if they carry forward and do it.
Yes.
There you go.
Amendment 5 and Amendment 14 of the U.S. Constitution says you cannot deprive someone of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Mask mandates do not involve due process.
Okay. I had a guy tell me that, well, they can do that now because of this declaration of emergency. State of emergency.
A state of emergency does not supersede the Constitution. The Constitution is supreme. It doesn't even supersede the state constitution. And I've read the emergency declaration law. Believe it or not, the Constitution says, yes, you can declare, the governor can declare an emergency, and the powers that it delegates them has to deal with how the state government runs.
Right.
It does not grant him the authority to effectively control the lives of the citizens of the state, to put them under house arrest, to restrict their liberties. It does not.
All right. There you have it,
You've
folks.
got to go to the original documents because people on Facebook, they don't realize it, but it's that game of telephone, right? Somebody heard something and it passed and passed and passed, and by the time it gets to Facebook and to you, it's changed dramatically. You have to go back to the original documents and find out the truth.
All right, guys. There you go. There's the answer to a lot of questions that a lot of us have. Paul, thanks again for coming in and sitting down with us and talking about this issue.
Thank you.
And we look forward to having you again, and we look forward to seeing you folks